So Disney and Paramount both put out two pretty big movies on the same day, Sonic the Hedgehog 3 and Mufasa, a prequel to the Lion King remake, the one that they tried to pass as live action but it's actually just photorealistic CGI. Anyway, Sonic 3 was basically everything I was hoping for, while Mufasa was basically everything I expected. They're fighting for the same box office, and it's not looking good for Disney. With Sonic 3 leaving Mufasa in the dust, Sonic 3 has opened at number 1, which was pretty unsurprising, and everyone's noticed. Take this Variety article, Sonic 3 speeds to 62 million debut, Mufasa the Lion King gets trampled with 35 million. I see what you did there. Before, Disney had been a real juggernaut at the box office, oftentimes crushing their competition, which we've seen happen multiple times in the past. Like DreamWorks made the mistake of releasing Rise of the Guardians the same month that Disney released Wreck-It Ralph, and they've also had a long history of burying the competition. Like back in 1989, Don Bluth's studio released All Dogs Go to Heaven on the same day that Disney released The Little Mermaid, and it got absolutely wrecked. The Little Mermaid earned 84 million, while All Dogs Go to Heaven only got 27 million. But that certainly isn't the case this time around, and it looks like Disney is coping hard. On Twitter they claim that Mufasa was the #1 movie in the world, which is technically true but only because Sonic 3 hasn't actually opened everywhere yet, which they point out in the community notes. Meanwhile, the hidden replies are a bunch of gifs of Shadow the Hedgehog, and people telling them to shut up. It's pretty brutal, but honestly they're kind of asking for it at this point. Disney has built up their reputation over the course of decades by making animated films that were so good they could be enjoyed for generations, but I think that for a while now Disney has been coaxing on their legacy and basically expect people to come to see their movies just because they're Disney. And I can't help but feel like they're being a little entitled, almost like they feel like they don't need to put in any effort. But that attitude has been catching up with them, and it's caused them to make some interesting choices that eventually led us to where we are today. They started doing live-action remakes of their animated movies, starting with Cinderella, which I personally think was one of their better remakes. The original was made in 1950, so enough time had passed so it wasn't absurd to make a remake. And at first this was working really well for them, with some of these live-action remakes making over $1 billion. But after years of cranking these out, and they clearly don't have as much charm as the original, not to mention them remaking movies that A, don't need a remake, and in Moana's case isn't even 10 years old, it really feels like they're just milking their backlog. And I think a lot of these issues come up in Mufasa. The Lion King remake was one of the ones that did exceptionally well at the box office, but even with the film's success, there were aspects of it that audiences did question, like them trying to downplay Be Prepared, a very beloved number from the movie. However, it was confirmed the original sequence was based off of a Nazi propaganda film, which makes sense considering the fact that it's a villain song, but the people behind the remake seemed to find that aspect uncomfortable, and wanted to cut the song entirely. This caused a lot of backlash from fans. However, they basically still skip over it in the actual film, with Scar only singing a couple lines of it, and talks through the rest. And needless to say, there's no goose stepping. And it's probably safe to say the only reason this film did so well was because of the nostalgia factor. No offense to director Jon Favreau or anyone else who worked on the film. It was 2019, and I think Disney and their remakes had a lot more goodwill back then. But it's been 5 years, and their remakes have largely fallen out of favor, while their original films have been pretty hit or miss. Inside Out 2 was great, but Wish was very disappointing, and Strange World was just forgettable. But given how well that Lion King remake did, it's not surprising that they would want to still capitalize on it. But even at the time, people were saying that that remake was unnecessary, and this prequel was even more unnecessary. In the original, it was pretty straightforward when it came to Scar's motivation. Scar is Mufasa's younger brother, and therefore second in line for the throne, but he's power hungry to the point where he's willing to kill his own family to get that power. But in this unnecessary prequel, they have it so the two of them are not actually related, and an ironic twist, Scar is actually the one who's in line for the throne, while Mufasa is instead just some random kid, who Scar's royal family takes in. And through a series of unfortunate and, in my opinion, convoluted events, the two of them go from being very close to growing apart and to the point where Scar becomes jaded and wants to kill his family. Like I said, Disney does feel like they're being pretty entitled, like the audience is obligated to see their movies, just because Disney made them even though no one actually asked for it. Meanwhile, the Sonic movies did the exact opposite approach, like when they famously changed Sonic's design from that creepy, realistic one to one that's a lot more in line with his game counterparts. and they were more humble about the situation, which audiences clearly appreciated, and I do think the franchise owes a lot to that decision. And although these movies take liberties with the source material, it does it in a way that's not contradictory to the source material, the way Mufasa did. Like, they tweaked the backstories to Sonic, Knuckles, and Shadow, but in a way that works for this particular universe, and without muddying the source material. And I think Disney has realized that things aren't going the way they had planned, both for better and for worse. Like with what happened with Moana 2. The film we got was originally intended to be a series for Disney+, but it seems that after the Wish debacle, they wanted to fall back on something that was already proven. Initially, Disney wasn't really one to do theatrical releases for sequels. For a while, they were making sequels direct to video, but most of them were pretty underwhelming. But it's obvious they've changed their minds about it, like with Frozen 2, which was very successful for the company, although they did have a pretty tumultuous time actually making the film, to the point where they were basically making it up as they went. There's a documentary about the behind-the-scenes process for the movie. I'm not entirely sure why they made an entire documentary instead of just a featurette, but it goes over some of their challenges, like not having major plot points ironed out by the time the film was actually being produced, hence the whole making it up as they went, which led to severe time crunch. Meanwhile with Moana 2, since it was planned to be a series, they had a story written out, but when they made the decision to take it to theaters, they had to cut a lot of plot points in order to make the whole thing fit into a feature film, which is a very daunting task and one that in my opinion they did not pull off, which led to some unsurprising problems with the film, like the supporting cast and narrative being underdeveloped. But like with Frozen 2, the movie was wildly successful, and I worry that Disney is going to let that affect our quality, something that Disney had been known and celebrated for, but now it kind of feels like they're more interested in making money, even if that means the quality of their film suffers for it. Obviously Disney is profit-driven, but we know they can do better, and we've seen them do better. Disney has had slumps in the past, but it's their entitlement that's really grating on me. I hope that going forward, Hollywood and other media companies will take lessons from Sonic 3, a movie that's part of a franchise that has faced challenges, but handled them with humility and grace, and has really been able to deliver, while being true to the overall franchise of Sonic the Hedgehog, but still unique to itself. But that's my opinion. What do you guys think? Did Sonic 3 live up to your expectations? And how do you feel about Disney's current climate? Let me know in the comments below. I'd love to hear from you. Thanks for watching, everyone. I really appreciate it. Before I go, I want to give a shout out to the members: Tyrant Carnivore, Shiny Orc Boy, General Bolivar, Depth Charge Media, Samaru163, Gabby Hime, Verdant Range, JVR, Phil C, Taylor Ramirez, Equestron, Norman Sweetcream, Way Beyond Coincidence, Hunter Rose, 80s Nostalgia Guy, Felix Bam, Lucas Geist, Jay Draws, Meowsers, Sky, Philip, Isaac Martinez, Garcia XV Legend, Tobias Weller, Bandito Bane, Mac B909, Dakari the Professor, Jin the Goblin, Todd McCaffrey, Omni Fair, Crimson Phantom, Datadyne Executive, Alto Burrito 9506, Caleb Nelson, Cavalcoge, Strider Exile, Killer Bomb, User Not Found Yet, Owen Wildish, and Slava Saporagez. Thank you for the support, and if you want to become a member, you can hit the join button next to the subscribe button. We also have Buy Me Coffee if you want to support us that way, and if you enjoyed the video, leave a like and subscribe to the channel, and that part's free. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you all next time. Bye for now.